Well, hello and welcome on into another episode of Around the World in 80 Stays. I'm your host, Sean Keane. We are here today with Liz Smith. I'm going to let her introduce herself and where she studied.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name's Liz. I am a senior at the University of Iowa, majoring in journalism and mass communications with a minor in English. And I had the amazing opportunity to be able to study abroad in Sydney, Australia.
All right, so first things first, I do this with everybody. Talk about Sydney. How did you get to Sydney? What was that process like?
So I decided to go to Australia and Sydney specifically, one because I am not fluent in any other language, but also I had the thought of when would I ever get the chance to go to Australia again in my life? It's such a long flight. I'm getting to the age where I'm going to have a full-time job, maybe a family in the next couple of years. When am I going to have the time to take a whole summer out of my life and be able to get the chance to travel around an entirely different country on the other side of the planet? So that's kind of how I settled on going to Australia.
And I misspoke earlier because I said you studied, but you interned
I
abroad
did.
in
Yes, that's
Australia.
correct.
So, were you thinking about interning at first, or was this opportunity presented to you and then you were like, oh, actually, interning might be a really, really good thing for me?
Yeah, so with the way my classes had kind of turned out, I had taken all of my gen eds, and there wasn't really a great class schedule for me at, let's say, a Bond University or Sydney University. And so I've been loving taking the journalism classes here at Iowa. And so I decided maybe an internship would be the better route. So get some work experience. I have yet to do an internship before this summer. And so I was so glad that I was able to apply what I had been learning in my classes into something in the workplace. So that's kind of how I settled on going the internship route rather than studying at an abroad university.
So I brought Liz in because I had heard her speak at a presentation about her internship, and you had a very unique place of work for your internship. Talk about what it was like working in this specific place and what you learned from it, not only as a journalist, but just from the specific profession of the company that you were interning in.
I worked at Autism Spectrum Australia, also known as Aspect. This company works with people on the autism spectrum to be able to situate them with housing, give them opportunities that they need to get out in the world and be successful, to create friendships, relationships, and just kind of thrive in the modern Australian culture. And so, I worked on their communications and marketing department. I was able to meet with people who are on the autism spectrum, learn about their experiences through this company, and I wrote profiles on them. I researched autism in general and wrote profiles and articles for their website. I worked for their social media to promote their organization and autism in general, and how that company feels that autism is not a disorder, but rather just a part of somebody, and they're trying to normalize it in more of the modern culture. And so it was super, super interesting to be able to be in that environment. And I'm so grateful because I really had not had a lot of experience with that part of disabilities and living in the past. And so just to learn about how to be more accommodating and more understanding to people who are different than myself was super helpful. It'll help me for the rest of my life. And just getting to meet people from all different types of backgrounds was great, and I loved it. Really out of my comfort zone. Especially because I had to learn to use certain language. So, let's say you are referring to an autistic person. You're not going to say they have autism, you're going to say they are an autistic person. There's very specific language that I had to use in my articles and profiles and social media posts that I had written. Everything that I wrote had to go through legal, just so that everything was supporting autistic people and what they go through, and just to be sure to not offend anybody. So it was super interesting to get to, yeah, work with people like that.
So you were working in a very, I think complicated is kind of the word, just of all of the boxes that you had to make sure to check that you were doing things right. Did you feel nervous or overwhelmed at the beginning, especially because you didn't have an internship before, where you're suddenly thrust into this one where you have to be so specific on language and you have to be so in the know of how procedure works? Were you nervous, or did you really kind of get right in? Were the people able to help you really well?
The people who worked at Aspect were amazing. I feel like this type of company is never going to hire like a negative Nelly, like cruel or mean person. And so all of the staff there was so accommodating, so nice, wanted to hear all about me, wanted to hear all about the United States, my college life. I loved my manager. So they did such a great job of making me feel accommodated. And because that type of company is so focused on mental health and accommodation, when I was having struggles with feeling homesick, like feeling really anxious on the other side of the world, they were able to give me the resources that I needed and gave me like the time and space. Let's say I was having a bad day because I was homesick. They would say, take the rest of the day off. We know mental health is important. And I really needed that. And I'm so appreciative that I was with an internship that was understandable about that aspect of study abroad.
So you were in a place that not only suited your career goals, but also your immediate personal mental health kind of goals in the same way. And I think that is a huge blessing to have something that can check all the boxes, especially when you are going completely and totally out of your depth. And talk about what it was like going to Australia, of what kind of anxieties you had, or what you were thinking about might have been the most difficult thing as you were going into a new, fresh internship in a place that definitely had a lot of requirements completely across the globe.
It was definitely a challenge. There is no denying that. So the flight from the United States to Australia was 14 hours, along
Yuck.
with
Gross.
it was awful, along with a transition flight to I flew out of Chicago to LAX, and that was 5 hours. So it ended up being around a 20-hour journey to get to the land of Down Under. And when I got there, you have the euphoric, oh my gosh, I'm on an adventure. I'm conquering the world. This is great. For about 3 days is how I felt. Uh, and then I kind of transitioned into the what have I done? I
The
am
world is starting to conquer back just a little bit.
the world has struck back. And so it was really, it kind of punched me in the face that I am thousands of miles away from my family. I'm all by myself. It took me a bit to get my phone up and running, so I couldn't call anybody really. I was basically just plunked in the middle of nowhere with nobody, and like I was just on my own. And so it took me a while to kind of settle in, make some friends, kind of really get adjusted to living in a fast paced city, especially because I had grown up in a super small Midwestern town my entire life. And so, definitely a transition from the cow fields and the pig farms to kangaroos and snakes. So, definitely a transition, but I was very proud of myself for what I had been able to overcome. I feel like by taking that big step and by pushing myself out into the unknown, into a whole different part of the world, that I was able to really meet who I was as a human being rather than who am I when I'm at work? Who am I when I'm in my journalism classes? I kind of learned who I was when I'm by myself, when I'm just in my own head. Who am I? And so that was really, really valuable. I learned kind of decided where I want to live when I might grow up. I'd never had a really specific city in mind, and kind of what person I want to be, maybe what my next step would be after I got back from study abroad. I did a lot of thinking while I was in Australia, while of course enjoying every single second.
And we'll get to that, don't worry.
Yeah, and we'll get to that. But I did a lot of thinking about how I would use this experience when I got home.
Talk to me a little bit more about that, like, soul searching kind of self-reflection process that you had, because I like to joke that, there's no wrong ways of doing study abroad, but I think also there definitely are wrong ways, because studying abroad or interning abroad and being in these situations should really make you reflect on who you are and where you're at. And if you haven't done that within your experience, then you've done it completely wrong. So talk to me a little bit more about that, like, self discovery process, almost that self clarification process, because you said you had different selves, in class or in work, uh, but putting it all together where you're still doing class and work, but you're in a different place and you're almost in a vacuum now. Bring a little bit more light to that self discovery process that you went through.
I think my process kind of started at the very beginning of my trip, as my body is kind of in like frenzy mode, anxious. What am I doing? Where am I? Blah, blah, blah. Then I think my mind kind of flicked into survival mode. Like, what are my bare necessities? Do I need to get through these next couple of weeks? What do I, as a person and a human being, need? And I kind of whittled it down to I need to surround myself with good people. I was able to go on the trip with 19 other college aged kids from around the US. There were people from Indiana, from New York, from Mississippi, from all over. And so we all stayed at one hotel. And so definitely in the beginning, first couple of weeks, there was lots of who are we going to be friends with, who are we going to wave in the hallways to, and who we're maybe not going to. And
Getting the
so
crew is important. You got to
getting the
get the
crew,
crew.
you got to have the crew for the memories. And so I'm a person, I'm an extrovert. I need to have yapping available at all times. And so I was able to find a good crew, and I was also able to think about what I needed for my mental health to be positive. Um, I love a nap. I love a quiet time. While I encourage everyone and I try to be go, go, go a lot, and make the absolute most out of my experience, always be trying new things and things like that. I know that I get so worn out when I don't have a time to decompress, and I'll be so anxious. So I really made it a point to set times aside for myself to be able to chill out. I had my little dragon game I'd play on my phone, some mindless nonsense, read a book, something like that. So I was able to spend some time on me and not spend some time on conquering the world, because that can be done at a later day.
So it really helped you prioritize and put into your own perspective how important mental health is, and continuing to maintain it with good practices and with good people around you to help in that practice. And I like what you were talking about with, go, 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 because anyone who has been in a study abroad program with me or knows about my travels and how I go about traveling is I have a very go, 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 go kind of mindset. I'm thinking I may never be in this place again, and I just need to go see everything, and I need to do everything. And I find that I run and I run and I run and I run and I run, and my decompression time is very little, because it's just like end of the day answering messages to the people who are most important, maybe put something up on Instagram, and then done. But it's unsustainable that way that I do it, and I know very much that it's unsustainable, and I really think that hearing that from you too, of just the power of being able to put the mental health first and just the decompression within it is something that I probably should have implemented more. Not that I was ever in a bad state while I was studying, because like I'm in this wonderful new place and it's great, and I'm very thankful to be there, of course. But I think it could have contributed to me taking in experiences a lot more if I had really had time to sit and think on them instead of moving, and also just help me feel less mentally tired. Because there were some days where I'm just going, thinking I have to fit all this stuff in, and I wasn't prioritizing that mental stamina, if you will. So I'm glad that you share that, because I also think that, you shouldn't be sitting around and doing nothing, but you need to know when it's good for you. And at any point in whatever program you do, there's going to come a day or a time where that's necessary. And don't be like me and just ignore that. Because looking back, and I mean, hearing from you and hearing from others, those are so much more important to have.
No, I definitely think that's such an important point to make because I'm someone who had struggled a bit with my mental health going into this program. And so I had been a little bit scared with how I was going to kind of cope with these feelings piled on top of the feelings of being in a completely new environment. And so I was glad that I got set up with the internship that I did, who was able to really accommodate. And also, I don't think that having feelings of anxiety or needing some time for yourself rather than being go, go, go all the time should scare someone off from wanting to study abroad or wanting to travel because definitely there are ways to accommodate and still make the most out of your trip without getting overwhelmed or not putting any time back into yourself.
Yeah, I think, and I like to save for the end kind of the biggest pieces of advice. So I would say hold on to that, but also I think that's really good that we plant that now and plant that to kind of put into perspective the rest of how you conducted yourself throughout this. Of we all have those anxieties, but when it's compounded, or like the pre kind of program anxieties, but like when it's compounded with some of the other real world struggles that we face, being aware of that, but also knowing that there's things that we can do, or that we shouldn't be afraid to seek out resources or use what we're about to experience to maybe change the way we encounter and we deal with these mental things. I think that that's really important, and I'm really thankful for you for sharing that too. Because yeah, people talk about the anxieties that come with studying abroad, but sometimes it really does go deeper, and it really does hurt a lot of people's views of wanting to study abroad, just because they think, I don't know how I might be able to manage it, or how I might be able to change my world, or how I'm going to be able to fit this in. But you, at least in your situation, had an internship and a stay and kind of like a program and a good set of place and time in mind, to where you were really able to manage, and I hope come through for the better on that.
No, I definitely I think that's true for sure. I think that I really did push myself by stepping out of my routine. But I think I'm better for it and I've grown as a person for it. So yeah, I'm really thankful that I did that.
We're going to move along here, but again, very thankful that you brought this up, and we can come back to this later when we talk about advice. So you said you land first 3 days, you're like, oh my gosh, Australia is mine and the rest of the world. We're going to conquer it. What was it like being in Sydney? What was it like living there? Because I think Sydney is a place that's fairly well known within the American conscious of, we see movies and those kinds of things, and we see it on travel brochures. How is it in comparison to what we see within pop culture things or on like travel things with actually living there? Because I would love to go to Sydney. I would love to see these things. Like, I've seen anyone but you. The location looks great. Talk to us about living in Sydney and what you thought about it.
Sydney is beautiful. One thing I would like to mention is I went during my summer break. So while I was in Sydney, it was winter there because they're in the southern hemisphere. And so although I did have tons of fun on the beaches and surfing, I did have to bundle up, put some sweaters on. What I liked most about Sydney is how quick it was to get everywhere. I loved the metro. We just had our little Opal card, scan in, hop on the metro. 10 minutes, you're in a completely different part of the city.
We are huge public transportation
Love
fans on this
public
podcast.
transportation.
Yes.
Um, Everything was so clean. I've been to Chicago and a couple other larger cities in the U.S. And one thing about Sydney that I noticed, there was not a spick or span of trash anywhere. It was so clean. Something about Sydney and Australia as a culture is they really respect public areas. There's always flowers everywhere, plants. Dogs are trained to walk to heel right next to their owner, like without a leash. And
Really?
the dog won't be barking or running around chasing things. It's trained to be right next to their human. Everybody is so respectful of one another. It's a very calming environment, even in a packed festival or a packed metro during rush hour. Everyone is very respectful. On the metro, there were special sections designated to handicapped individuals or maybe a pregnant individual. And you were able to sit in these seats, but let's say someone who needed the seat more came on after you, people would get up off of their seat automatically, no questions asked. So everyone was very polite and respectful of everyone else and their needs.
If I can interrupt talking about the metro, I have two questions for that. So you were talking about designated spaces for pregnant or disabled people to sit. Does the Sydney Metro, and this is mostly just for me, this people who go to these places they can find out, but this is mostly just for me. Does Sydney have designated cars specifically for like women and young children? Because I know that in some like Asian and Oceania metros, and I think even Mexico City's metro does it. They have like specific cars dedicated to women and small children, and only women and small children can get on. Or do those exist, or is it just normal kind of like here's our ADA, A for Australian this time, not American, like our ADA kind of requisite seating?
On the metros in Sydney, they did not, but in Melbourne or any other places, maybe. But I never felt in danger ever walking at night. I would walk by myself at night all the time, which isn't maybe not advised, but I never felt threatened by anybody at all. I felt very safe while I was in Sydney.
My second question then, and that's good that you feel safe too, and that you touched on that as well, because that's always a big thing. We're big proponents of safety. Do be safe in your other places, because we do not want to have you end up a headline over here. My other question though is, what is the metro culture like? Because a lot of metros that I have been to outside of the U.S. and public transportation outside of the U.S. are like silent. You can hear a pin drop and you realize very quickly how American you are, because the second you even raise your voice to a whisper, everyone just like turns and looks at you. But then here in the US, it's not quiet. It's not quiet and it's not loud, but like we have noise. Is it like a completely silent metro kind of deal?
I'm so glad you brought that up because I completely had forgotten that was even a thing until right now. It was completely silent. And then my group
It
of
feels creepy, doesn't it?
It's awful. And I'm a loud talker, very expressive person
We're the loud
to begin.
Americans.
I'm a
Like,
loud American. I'm always talking about stuff. And so my big group of 19 Americans all hopping on the metro together, we're all talking to each other. If I was a poor Sydney bystander, I would be so angry.
they must have
Because
hated
they
you.
hated us. Because yeah, the rest of that car silent. Silent, not a word was said, but us, we were la 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 la. So yeah, very Australians are very quiet.
That's so funny. Again, something that just really intrigues me about everywhere else in the world, even in Canada, even on the metro in Montreal, like it's just pin drop silent. And then here we just do whatever. But again, maybe it's because we're loud Americans and that's just kind of what we do for good or for bad. Who knows? So anyway, he continue talking to us just about Sydney and what different things you noticed and going around, because you said going around is so easy. The metro is so wonderful. Public transportation is great.
No, definitely. I was able to do lots of exploring. But something I noticed, which I thought was super interesting, is the area of Sydney that we stayed in was called Chatswood. And it was a kind of suburb of Sydney, like a 5-minute metro ride out. But it was full of lots of Asian culture. And I think I kind of assumed that people from Asian countries had immigrated or vacationed there and kind of ended up in the suburb of Chatswood. And so it was really interesting. I didn't really have a signature Australian food, in quotes, but I had so much delicious Asian food
That
from,
was going to be a question, was what was the
yes.
Asian food game like there?
The Asian food game, impeccable. And so that was so interesting because when I think of Australia and Sydney, I think of Steve Irwin, the spiders and the snakes and the down in the outback and the kangaroos. I don't really think about as much as of a connection to Asia and Asian culture. And so it was really interesting to see how much of a connection these places really do have, because Asia has a great impact on Sydney. It's very prevalent all over.
What was the best of the Asian food that you ate, or the most notable?
The most notable, I'm not a very adventurous eater, which I think is such a bummer for this podcast, although I do have some good foods coming up, so don't worry. But most of my Asian food was your classic, like lo mein, chicken and fried rice. I was
So you
very,
really white breaded that whole
yeah,
experience.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Australia.
Well, I mean, it's not like you're going somewhere that we would completely, and I'm making air quotes here, like deem exotic in terms of food. I feel like there's a pretty good base level there. But what are you said you have some other good foods. What are the other good foods that really had you, Australian, Asian, or otherwise?
Well, let's start off with the classic Vegemite,
Oh
Australian.
boy.
It's a yeast byproduct, and I had it with butter on a crumpet. They have it for breakfast. It's a very snacky food for them. I liked it. I'm a big savory girl. I would rather have a mozzarella stick or fries over ice cream any day. And so I really liked the Vegemite. There was very mixed reviews in my cohort. Another big Australian thing were Tim Tams, if you've heard of those. It's a type of chocolate-covered cookie. Very crunchy. They have different flavors like mint, caramel, dark chocolate, strawberry, all kinds. But Tim Tams super famous in Australia. You will have maybe a 10-foot by 10-foot section in every grocery store of just Tim Tams. Everyone loves them.
Are they like snack sized, or are they kind of bigger? Because I know of Tim Bits from Tim Hortons. Shout out to Tim Hortons. Those are like, snack sized donut holes. Or are these like actual cookies? Or are they even just like normal bagged cookies, kind of like a Chips Ahoy kind of size? What kind of size are we dealing with here? Could you like binge through a whole bunch of these? Or is this a one-time affair? Or
Okay, very bingeable. They were one of my favorite late night snacks. They're rectangles. And so I would say it would be maybe a 2-inch by 1-inch rectangle. So small enough to be snacky and eat an entire package in one night. And that was a curse and a
guilt-free,
blessing.
right?
Guilt-free. Anything I ate in Australia was good for me, is what I had to say, because I really liked about Australian food packaging. Let's say you got yourself a bag of potato chips. It would have a rating out of 5 stars how healthy it is. So maybe pick like some really salty, oily potato chips would be a 2, but some protein powder would have 5 stars
So
rated on it.
speaking of guilt, Like, you could look at a thing and be like, "Oh, this looks amazing," and I know that I want it, but at the same time, if it's got that one-star rating, a part of you is like, I don't know," you know?
Sometimes I would be like, "I need to be healthy, like, I gotta power my body for all the adventuring I'm doing," and sometimes I would be like, "I deserve this. You know, it's only 1 star because it's number 1, and I need to eat it. It's the best
Stars are a
food."
made-up concept
Yeah,
anyway,
who made up
so
stars anyways? And so, it was a blessing and a curse, but, it was really interesting to see the way that Australians marketed their food, especially the nutritional facts and what was in the food, was listed very clearly, and I thought that was a bit different than what I had experienced in the United States.
so I don't get to ask this a lot, and I really should probably ask this more because, again, it's a personal curiosity thing, and also it's my podcast. We talk about whatever we want. But no, did you see any American food there or like American brand that was packaged differently than it is here or in like size and quantity different? Because one of my favorite things is going somewhere abroad and seeing how American food is marketed because you can get some really, really funny things that come out of it.
Yes, that was something I noticed that, a lot of the snack foods that Americans, are pretty common here, would come in much smaller packages in Australia, like half sizes. The Australians, they are all about the fitness. At like 5 a.m., everyone was out for a run. They would all be at Bondi Beach. They were out for a run. Everyone's so fit. They're very attractive. They're tan. They're surfers. And they're in the gym. And they are not eating 1 star foods, unlike me. But yeah, what I kind of learned about Australia, and if there's any Australians listening to this, I'm so sorry for what I'm about to say. But Australia is kind of like 5 years behind America. So everything America does, it's going to happen in Australia in like 5 years. So they were listening to pop music from like 5 years ago. They didn't have a ton of let's say you go out to eat or you are at some place like a public event that's playing music. They're not going to be playing Australian artists. They're going to be playing American artists that are big. I think maybe that comes with English being kind of their main language, but a lot of the culture and the way they dress is very American. They have a lot of our slang has been adapted, and so I thought that was super interesting.
Kind of weird that people are saying our slang than with an Australian accent. I have one more food question before we move on. So I have a friend who went to Australia and New Zealand, and this may just be a New Zealand thing. And I recognize those are two separate countries, cultures, whole thing, but the intertwine is there. Did you have any, like, ice cream there that blew your mind? Because I can't remember if it's Australia or New Zealand, what my friend told me, but one of those 2 has supposedly, like, world famous ice cream, and as I'm saying it out loud, I feel like it might be New Zealand and therefore irrelevant, but did you h I guess I have to ask, did you have any ice cream in Australia that blew your mind?
I think I had ice cream once when I was in
And I know
Australia.
you said you didn't eat ice
It
cream
was
too, I
the
recognize that.
like gelatissimo, if that rings a bell. It was good. I liked it. But the mind-blowing food that I didn't get a chance to talk about earlier was I had some kangaroo jerky. That was really
That's
interesting.
legal?
It is, yes. So, kangaroo in Australia are like deer here. So they're a pest. They're like, they're yeah, wildlife. They're just kind of hopping around. They're in the city, like you can see them.
Wait, like, they're in the city in the
Yeah,
city?
yeah. You know
Wow.
how sometimes you'll be driving down, driving in Iowa City, a deer's kind of in the background. Kangaroo, right there, just chilling. So yes, you can eat kangaroo. I had kangaroo in jerky form. I didn't really have a hankering for a big slab of it or anything. But it was really sweet, and I
Uh.
don't know if I've had too much sweetened meat in my life, but, it was fun to try for kicks and giggles, say, "Haha, I ate kangaroo," but, I wouldn't pay for it. Another thing I had was crocodile meat.
Oh, yeah, Yes.
So that
All
was
right.
also don't know if I would buy a big slab of that either.
Did it taste like chicken?
No, it was also
Really?
all of this was in jerky form. That's the only
Ah,
it
okay.
was kind of like a Sydney gift shop. I didn't find it any other places, but I was like, I have to try crocodile and kangaroo. When else am I going to eat some? And so, very chewy. Maybe what you would imagine a reptile would taste like.
Chewing on crocodile hide might
Chewing
be.
on crocodile hide casually. So, yeah, some weird foods down in Australia, but I enjoyed it. Good to have on the resume.
So I was curious about the crocodile meat because I was down at a joint in Louisiana one time and we had alligator meat and like actual meat, not in jerky form, and it tasted like chicken. So I had to know. I'll be sure to see if I can find myself a crocodile steak if I'm ever down in Sydney, and then definitely a kangaroo steak. I want to know about that because when I was in Chile, I had llama steak, and that was, I mean, it was fine. It was just weirdly brown. Like when it cooked, it was brown, but not in like a normal cooked kind of brown way. And I know that the people listening, you can't see this, but it looked like the table that we're sitting at right now. It was very weird, but I really like that. So that was a fun food adventure. And you said you're not an adventurous eater, but I mean, when else is anyone else on this podcast going to have had the opportunity to at least legally eat kangaroo? So, Australia is, of course, a lot bigger than Sydney, and there's a lot more to Australia than Sydney. We don't want to kind of Paris and France it. Talk to me about the travels that you took outside of Sydney and what out greater Australia was like to you.
One thing that I want to explain to anyone who is thinking about maybe going to Australia in the future, it's so big. Australia is so big. Like someone saying that they are going to go to the Great Barrier Reef in Sydney and Melbourne all in one day is like saying someone wants to go to LA and New York and the Grand Canyon in one day. It is so big. So I spent a lot of time in the Sydney area because the way Australia is made up, it's a lot of city, very concentrated, and then hundreds of miles of nothing. Outback or the Uluru. Or I really liked the slang in Australia. They had so much good slang. The whoop whoop means like out in the middle of nowhere. And so yeah, lots of the whoop whoop. And so I spent most of my time in Sydney. I didn't get to explore a ton of other cities. The other cities I did explore, I had to fly to. And so I didn't get the chance to go to the Great Barrier Reef, although I would have loved to have that opportunity because the Great Barrier Reef is not near Sydney at all. It was a 7-hour flight.
7
It was a
hours.
7-hour
Like
flight.
no layovers.
No layovers,
7
straight flight
hours.
there.
Oh my
And it
gosh.
was like a $2,000 plane ticket.
What?
And so I was really bummed because that was what I really wanted to do. Like the Great Barrier Reef. Ooh.
So what you're saying is some of Australia's biggest wonders may need to be reserved for adult money.
Yes. And then the way out in the middle of nowhere, the Outback or the Uluru, I think that was like a 10-hour flight and another $1,000. And so I would have loved to have gone like camping in the middle of nowhere. But the country is so big. And so although I went on Manly Island or I went trail hiking, all of that good jazz, I didn't get to do the big camping experience that I want just because Australia is so big that it's really hard to hop around from city to city like some people may do in some of these European study abroad. And so I really got the chance to spend a lot of time in Sydney, the city, and go through all of the little boroughs and suburbs. And each one was very different, different cultures, different immigrants from different places. There was a lot of immigrants, I would say, and they had each brought little pieces of their culture to Sydney, which I thought was so interesting. Every week it seemed like there was a festival. Bastille, the French festival, went on while we were in Australia, and they had this whole giant parade, vendors. The streets were covered in people to celebrate holiday that is originally from France. And so it was very worldly in Sydney, I would say. There were people from all over celebrating all kinds of different things. And I got to learn more about not just Australia, but I got to learn more about some Asian countries, some France. When I went to that festival, I had my French onion soup and my baguette and my crepe, and it was great. And so it was, yeah, Sydney is such a unique city where, although I was a bit bummed that I didn't get to travel all across Australia as a country, that city contains so much in it that I feel like I did really get to explore lots of Australia and lots of places.
So you did a lot of exploring just in one place, and you really got to know Sydney as a place, I guess, since Australia is so big. Like I knew it was big, but 7 hour flights, 10 hour flights, thousands of dollars. That I'm glad that you shared that because that's something to really take into account. I think if people are thinking about maybe having this grand Australian adventure. Now, to be fair, you were there for just what, 8 weeks?
I think, yeah, 8.5 or
Like
10.
eight-ish weeks, maybe someone with a semester or going for a semester who has more money and time on their hands might be able to do that. But to just listeners keep that in mind who might want to go to Australia, that you might need adult money to
Yeah.
get this one. But you did say though that you did go to a place outside of Sydney just one time, right?
Yes, we went to a city that was up north, which that's kind of like in America going south. So it's called the Gold Coast, which is kind of like a Florida area. So tropical, lots of fun activities, maybe a bit of gimmicky type things. There was like a Ripley's Believe It or Not store on the strip. There was one of those giant slingshot machines right on the main drag. So very,
Did it have a wax museum there too?
yes, yes. It was
So
very,
it's that kind of
very
place. Yeah.
touristy, one of those kinds of places. But I still had a blast. As a college kid, I feel like those places with all like the gimmicky, like touristy shop things are so fun. That's where I got a lot of my souvenirs to bring home was in Gold Coast. Because Sydney, although they do get some tourists for the opera house, things like that, I wouldn't say it's a touristy city, like maybe a Las Vegas or like a Miami or something, or LA would be. It's just a large city, but it doesn't necessarily cater to tourists. So I had to search long and hard for a cheesy gift shop to bring my kangaroos and boomerangs back for my family. So I thought that was really interesting as well.
That's really curious that I guess Sydney, maybe outside of the Opera House, isn't the biggest tourist destination, but most people getting to Australia kind of have to go to Sydney first. So you'd think so, but that's good to know then that either go to the airport or go to the Gold Coast. I didn't get to touch on this earlier, but I kind of want to go back to this a little bit. And you had brought it up as well. You were talking about your cohort that you were there. Was your cohort doing what was it like just living with them and having fun with the crew first and foremost, but what did you get to learn maybe about them and their experiences or like other parts of the US? Because I found that in my studies abroad I learned so much about not only these people individually but also just the US in context of we're out of like the vacuum and the noise that is our normal things and we really get to think about it. So did you have anything like that? What was it like being with your cohort there?
Something that was constantly brought up in my group, especially at kind of the end when we looked back on how like the dominoes fell, like who ended up being better friends with who in the group, is the Midwestern people really like to stick together. There was, including myself, there was 4 people from the state of Iowa, and then
Did you know them or were they just
I did
from
not know them.
Okay.
They just happened to also go here. And then I think there was 4 or 5 who went to Indiana, someone from Mizzou. Um,
MIZ. Sorry, that's where I'm from. I had to shout that out.
so yeah, there was kind of a group of Midwestern people, and then people from the cities like the LA or the New York of it all. Although we were friendly, we just didn't have very much in common. Something about me, I would proclaim myself. I don't know if others would, but I would self-proclaim myself as someone with a bit of the Midwest nice. And so I'm very sensitive. I take everything to heart. I worry about how people perceive me.
Do you
Um,
apologize a lot too?
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. It's my bad. So I also love to throw a good ope in there and let me sneak right past you. That one's always a classic. But I had a bit of a interesting relationship with my internship partner. He was from New York. And it was a bit difficult for us to really connect because we communicated so differently. Let's say I'm asking you to do me a favor. I'm going to say, "Hey, I'm so sorry to bother you, but can I please have you do such and such a thing? It would be really helpful to me. Like, thank you so much. I would totally appreciate it. Like, thank you, thank you." And he would go, "Do this for me." And he wasn't being like, it wasn't rude in any way. It was just very straight to the point. But because of the way that I've grown up speaking and kind of our dialect, and in my head, I'm going, he hates me. He's a mean person. But really, that's just how people from these bigger cities, what I've learned, everyone from the bigger city just happen to be like that. Very blunt, very getting straight to the point. And it was very unusual for me as a Midwesterner because that's not how we talk. It took me a second to get used to it, and that kind of big city personality.
So you kind of culture shocked yourself
Yes.
with your own people, not being in Australia, but with your own people.
Yes.
And what was it like working with, and I know you said like at first you're like, oh my God, he hates me and all these kinds of things. But what was it like working at the beginning with someone who is from just a completely different place in the US as you? Did that lead to any more problems other than just like, do it? Come on, you know?
Him being blunt was kind of a kicker for me. We ended up being good friends. We would make fun of each other at like the very end, very brother sisterly relationship. But the bluntness was something it took me like a long time, like a month or two to get past because like we were very friendly. So I would say like, "Hey, like do you want to do something this weekend? Like let's go on a walk. Let's go get lunch or something."
No.
Basically, he'd be like, "Sorry, I'm hanging out with the guys." And, which is a perfectly acceptable answer from him, but in my Midwestern way, I wanted him to be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I've already made these plans. Like, maybe in the future, like, we can do something." And it's just such a different way of communicating that it really threw me for a loop for a second. Just my specific internship partner in particular, um, he was a lacrosse bro. And we just had very different personalities. So he had like the frat bro of it all combined with the big city. Yeah, we ended up being very good friends, but yeah, definitely some communication issues to start.
And you are going to send this to him when this is all out and
Yes,
done,
and
right?
yes I am. And
Awesome.
he'll love it.
Awesome. Well, so then contrast that experience of just learning about different Americans with your interactions with Australians. Because I know you said the people at your work were very kind and welcoming and just good natured people. And of course, those people are great, but I also think that might be just because of the job that they're working in. But what was your perception of Australians in conversing with them and being around them?
The Australians are wild. They are absolutely wild. I would put Australians who are young adult age into kind of two groups. I would do more of the country Australians, so mullets and farm and hanging out with the boys and stuff like that. That's kind of country Australian, and who maybe think of a Southern American. And then we have the surfers, so getting up at 5 a.m. to go run on the beach and surf and greens and kale and the gym and I'm going to flex in the mirror. And so I would think of those maybe a beachy person from LA or something. So kind of two different categories I would put these people in. They're very wild.
No middle ground. You're just in.
No, I promise you, no middle ground. There is one or the other. I promise you, you have to pick a camp. But definitely the country Australians are a lot of them are very brash. This one Australian man came up to me at one time. He was my age, but he had his mullet going on. And he goes, "Do you want to see my tattoo?" And I'm like, "Sure. Why not? Maybe it's a cool tattoo?" And he just really pulls down most of his pants to show me this tattoo on his thigh. And so that was just a very wild thing to do. I would not expect someone in the Midwest to do that to me. It really threw me off guard. Maybe that was just a him thing. But a lot of Australians, very brash, very out there, wild, very confident. So that was a lot of fun to be around.
Well, my final question about Australians, because I don't know too much about kind of outbackish and country Australian culture, but from what I have heard, that seems kind of on brand from other sources. But my final question about them is, so when I went to the UK, that was my first time being outside of the US, and when I got there, it was really great, and I was listening to people talk, and I was talking to people, and about like the second day in, and the whole rest of the time I was there, I was overwhelmed by the urge to speak in a British accent the entire time. Not in like a funny way, but like I just felt like I had to do it. Did you start picking up an Australian accent when you were there? Like, did you have the urge to start doing that?
It's actually really funny that you mentioned England because I would equate him to like an RA, a resident assistant for a dorm. He was just he was really young, maybe 25. So he was our age. He came on all of our like IES sponsored trips and everything. He was from England. Shout out Stefan. um,
You're gonna send this to him too, right?
yeah. And he was very English. And so instead of adopting an Australian accent, everyone in my group started talking in a British accent just because of this specific guy. And
Oh, and I'm sure he was thrilled to have that
he
happen.
loved it. He loved it. The Brits also have some dope slang. I love slang from everywhere. The bottle-o, the whoop whoop, so many fun things. But I can't do an Australian accent. It's really hard for me. I imagine doing an Australian accent would be like an American trying to do a British accent, but trying to make the British accent sound like Southern and Texan. And so I can't do it. It's very much in the back of your throat. And yeah, I can do like a all right, 4 out of 10 British accent, but I like couldn't even give an attempt at an Australian accent. It's just out of my wheelhouse. I can't do it.
Well, I mean, I guess we had differing experiences because I feel like if that happened to me in the UK and I was just there for a week, if I was in Australia for 2 months, I would be biting my tongue right before I started speaking. So I want to wrap us up here because you have had just some really fun experiences and really fun things to say about being in Australia. My sister, she really wants to go to Australia, so I know she's definitely going to love hearing this. But anyone who is thinking about studying, I am really glad that you've put this out here. So, to wrap kind of up, what are the biggest pieces of advice that you would give about your intern or being in Australia or just the process in general? What do you have to give to the people?
I think everyone says is like, just go do it. That's a given. I will give that advice also. Just go do it. But for Australia specifically, I think that's what I would be most suited to give some advice on. Go see the animals. Get out of the city, go in the wilderness, go see an animal. Our
Don't
group,
take a 7-hour flight for it,
do
though.
not take a 7-hour flight, but get out. The Blue Mountains are the big nature area, kind of an hour or so outside of Sydney. That's where you're gonna find all the spiders and the creepy crawlies. I didn't get to see any spiders, and I was bummed. I wanted to see some spiders in Australia, but it was winter. Go pet the wombats and the wallabies and the kangaroos and the koalas. Go see the animals. That's something that Australia is known for. They have really cute possums. They don't look anything like American possums. They're adorable. If you know what a kinkajou is, I really like kinkajous, and they look really similar to those. But yeah, definitely go see the animals. In Sydney specifically, there's so many fun events. Get out of your hotel room or whatever and go to all of these festivals. They're usually free unless you want to buy some food or a souvenir or whatever. They have live music going on. There's so many cool um, eclectic spots that are hidden within the city. So many, there was a lot of maybe a speakeasy type place that you had to like knock on a specific door to let you in, and maybe you would hear about it from a different place you were at, and they were like, it's 3 doors down, like take a left, and there's this hidden place. And so there is so much deep within Sydney that's really, really interesting and that I think is beneficial and really interesting to see. That although you may not to get to hop around to tons of different countries, you get to learn one city pretty well and learn a lot about one specific country's way of life.
That is some really, really fun sounding advice. And a lot of people come on here and they give the heavy hitting ones and things, but I love just how down to earth and like real with that. Of go see the animals, man. I think sometimes we we maybe look past the fact that like you're also just there to hang out and you have these opportunities. Like go see these beautiful possums, go see the wombats and the wallabies and the kangaroos and the kinkajous, and everything's starting to rhyme, isn't it? I think that that's good advice too for people who are maybe like me, because I want to, if I'm in one specific place and I know there's a lot to see in a lot of places, I neglect often going to explore the own city that I'm in. And I want to just go out and find all of the places, but that there's value in just staying in the place that you are and being content in the place that you are. So I'm thankful that you shared that, because I need to start taking that more to heart. And now I really want to go to Sydney, Australia. I really, really want to go to
It's so
Sydney.
neat. One thing that I never mentioned that is so surprising, it's like a giant thing for Australia, surfing. Bondi, arguably one of the most famous surfing beaches in the entire world. Go surfing. I didn't go surfing until I think my last week in Australia. I think it was because my group's like, oh, we'll go. It's surfing. We're in Australia. We have to go surfing. So we kept pushing it up. So get surfing under your belt early, because when I finally did go surfing, I was terrible. I think I stood up on the board maybe once. And maybe if I would have started and started going consistently throughout my trip, maybe I could have been the next soul surfer. I could have been ripping waves. And so yeah, definitely do not forget about surfing. Although it is a main thing, get that done. Surfing is so fun.
Go surfing. Have to do it. I personally am terrified of surfing,
There's
but
no sharks. Don't be scared of the sharks. You're good. You're good.
it's more a thing of my dignity.
Mm.
But so to give you now a platform to finish us out, talk to us about what you are involved in here on campus and what you want the people to know about you and what you're doing right now.
What am I doing? I do some Daily Iowan television stuff. Kayla Smith is our director. She's amazing. All of the work they're doing over at the Daily Iowan. Gotta hype them up. I know Grace Lathrop was on the podcast a couple weeks ago. She's amazing. Her word on the street. I am out and about. Give me a job, maybe if you if you hear this. But go everything in Adler is amazing. Everyone is so kind here. I love to go to all of their different events and support. Come visit me at Maggie's. That's Maggie's Wood Fired Pizza. That's where I really like to be. That's where I work. Great place.
I need to get out to Maggie's. I have never actually been out there, and wood-fired pizza sounds really good. So one final question, the one question I always ask at the end, what is the one song that has encompassed your study abroad experience? What do you got?
So my one song was "Good Riddance" in parentheses "Time of Your Life" by Green Day. And I also have a different song that I would like to add. It's called Parked Down by the Lake. And it's by Dean Summerwind. And it's kind of a jokey song rather than a sentimental song. But yeah, Parked Out by the Lake. It's a emotional, hard-hitting ballad by Dean Summerwind that was kind of the anthem of my entire group's trip. Every time we would do something at night or get prepared to something, we would listen to this jokey song. And it's this guy, Dean, singing about how he's parked down by the lake, and he kind of says the same sentence 30 times in a row, the whole 4-minute song.
So it's like an around the world Daft Punk kind of thing.
He's just saying he's parked down by the lake, 80 miles from Santa Fe. And he just says it again and again in different ways. And it's a jokey song, but on our last night, we played this song and we're all sobbing to this jokey, stupid Park Down by the Lake song. But it had become such a theme song for the trip that this jokey stupid repetitive song had us. There's a quotes sad version as well as an original version, so we put the sad version on. And so that was a fantastic send-off because that song had been such a anthem for the trip.
That's so fun to hear that you guys as a whole had an anthem in addition to your one
No,
anthem,
definitely,
because
yeah.
sometimes it's hard to get other people to get onto your music personally. A lot of my study abroad songs don't make sense to anyone else but myself. But the fact that you, on top of the wonderful experience that you shared, you get that song too, and you can just use that as a nice little nostalgia vault anytime that you want. Well, Liz, we are at time, but I have had so much fun talking about this with you. This has been an amazing experience, and I want to thank you for coming on, sharing your experience. Anyone who is interested in interning or studying in Australia, come to Liz. Always, as always, talk to the study abroad department. Do know that studying abroad is for anyone and for everyone. It is possible. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you wherever and whenever in the world next time.